consistently the rest of the way. New players rolling in and out. How fair is it to judge not only the team but the coach moving forward? Marcus Hayes, columnist, Philly.com, The Inquirer, Daily News. And he says it's tough to judge the coach when the lineup is so inconsistent. I seem to agree with him. He joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Hot topic, Marcus. What's happening, man?
Not too much, man. I mean, I'm not sure how we will ever be able to judge Brett Brown because the team seems to be in flux at all points, mainly because Joel Embiid misses 5, 10, 15 games every time you turn around. But it just seems unfair to say, hey, this guy can or can't do this when the personnel is so unstable, and the roster is always changing.
Yeah, I mean, his first couple of years, he had, 50 different players come in. Then once they got past that,
50.
Right? Once they got past that, you had Embiid on the minute restriction. I mean, he has seemingly never had a concrete group of guys to just have from training camp all the way through. So I totally agree with what you're saying. And, of course, I'm the guy here, and then you got all these people coming at me saying, well, you're just sticking up for the team and yada, yada. I said, no, I just don't feel I personally can judge this guy based on these rosters and the situations this team has been put in. But fair or unfair, I think people are judging him regardless.
Well, I mean, when you look at what happened in the Boston series last year, in Game 2, it wasn't the best result for Brett Brown. There, with personnel issues. Did he play T.J. McConnell early enough? And if the roster had been a little bit different, if the personnel decisions had been a little different, would it matter? I don't think so. I think Joel Embiid has to get past Marcus Morris and Hayward before, before he gets to the point where he's effective. There seems to be a block there for Joel Embiid, but the real issue for me is, can Brett Brown take a team of, evolving young players that has now been, I guess, accessorized with better veterans and win a championship? And I don't think that you can get that answer by the end of the season, going into next season. I don't expect them to win a championship this season, but going into next season with Joel Embiid being diminished down the stretch for 18 or 19 games.
Yeah, and Marcus, I agree with you. I think it's not fair. It's definitely not fair to say at this point or 19 games from now, after the playoffs, regardless of what type of run or lack of run that this team makes, to say that Brett needs to go. But at the end of the day, isn't that kind of just how this thing goes? And then, the other part of it is, if you're saying they can't be assessed, then what's your expectations? And then how are you viewing this team moving forward for this season? Is everything house money or what,
Well, yeah, I mean, if you judge Brett Brown in the lens of how he does against Al Horford, with Joel Embiid, then you could say, oh yeah, 2-10 in the last 12 is that's not good enough, and we hate the Celtics. But that doesn't seem to be a rational judgment. I mean, think about what Brett Brown has done with Joel Embiid and with Ben Simmons, and with Dario Saric and Robert Covington, who turned into Jimmy Butler. I mean, he's a really good coach, and he'd be hired tomorrow by a team if he were fired by Philadelphia. And who are you going to replace him with? Thibodeau? Well, there's a reason Thibodeau doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, and it's not to say that Monty Williams wouldn't be able to take over and do better. My point is not that Brett Brown is the greatest coach in history. My point is that we don't know if he's good, bad, or indifferent because he has had no stability in 7 seasons, including this season. I mean, 6 of the top 8 players are newcomers.
Yeah, and
it's ridiculous. I mean, 6 of the top 8 guys weren't on the roster when the season began.
Sure.
And 5 of those guys weren't on the roster on New Year's Day.
Yeah, and in most situations, with most franchises, it would be a completely valid point. And not saying it's not valid, but I'm just saying that this situation is unique in the fact that you've done all these trades and adjustments and roster moves, and now you have Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler and the rest of the crew that's new here in town. And there's a possibility that they're not here next year on opening night. So that elevates the pressure and expectations for this season, does it not? Like, in your mind, do you have any, for lack of a better word, fear that Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler, if something goes wrong here, that they're not in a Sixers uniform next year?
Well, I don't have any fear. I don't really care one way or another. But,
yeah, not that you're up all night, but
well, and I don't really care if the team wins or loses or moves. My contention is, if you're going to judge what the team is and who the team is, you need more than 2 months of reconstituting an attack, number one, a defense, number two, and the Joel Embiid's the most important player, not only on this team, but maybe on any team outside of Milwaukee and maybe Houston. He's just absolutely integral to everything they do every second on the court, that he's on the court. He's on the court for 34 minutes a game. So, I mean, they funnel the defense to him. They run the offense through him. So when he's not around, how you can judge what the team is and how they're going to mesh is just impossible. That's not Brett Brown's fault. Joel Embiid, not only did Joel Embiid not tell them his knee hurt, he's the one that's keeping himself off the floor. He's the one who determined that his knee hurt too much to miss, 5 or 6 games now. He's the one that's who is determining when he comes back or when he doesn't. So these are all things that are out of Brett Brown's control. And because he didn't have, the perfect personnel on the floor against Los Angeles, or because, he told Ben Simmons to miss a free throw on purpose against Golden State, that's not why you fire a coach. That's just if that's why you're firing the coach, then you want to fire the coach for other reasons.
Marcus Hayes, Philly.com, with us here, and a really good piece. I think a lot of people should check it out. And, I have been on your side a lot, and I still am, Marcus. I think that the coach is really – and I've kind of likened it to the Sam Bradford of coaching. Like, Bradford was the number one pick, and then he had a different coordinator every year, and then he was hurt, and it seemed like you can make 100 different excuses why Bradford never really – was able to reach his full potential. I don't know that Brown had the pedigree that Bradford quite had entering the league. However, I find it to be very difficult. However, is there a scenario where the team just says that they view him and say, I get it, it's not fair, but the perception just is that you were the guy to get us to this point? Because we've seen a lot of teams that had to move on from their coach and hire a new coach, and that guy ultimately takes them to the promised land. Is that basically the way that this might end for Brown, is that the fans just get so restless that they have to say, we need a new face, a new voice, because we don't have these young guys that we used to have?
Well, certainly familiarity can breed contempt, and you have to wonder what the relationship is like right now between Brett Brown and Joel Embiid, between Brett Brown and Ben Simmons, and certainly between Brett Brown and Jimmy Butler, who, apparently he had some conflict with not long after Butler arrived, vis-a-vis Butler's role, even though, Butler has been hurt himself. So, yeah, I mean, familiarity breeds contempt. In the NBA, the players run everything. The players and their agents and the shoe companies run everything. And, I just believe that at this point, Brett Brown is an excellent coach for this team. He understands what this team is and who these guys are, and I think that he's done a good job to this point. They're on pace to win another 50, 52 games. They're on pace to have another number 2, 3, or 4 seed and get to the playoffs and make some noise, especially if Embiid is healthy. But if they don't, I don't think that his head should roll, because he's, for the 7th consecutive season, he's dealing with a team that is vastly different from the years before. Last year, he won 52 games with a rookie point guard who'd never played point guard. This year, he's going to win somewhere between 50 and 55 games with a team that was reconstituted at the trade deadline and added a star early in the season and detracted 2 starters from it. That's spectacular coaching. That's really good coaching. You can call it what you want. They won 3 out of 5 without Joel Embiid. That's good coaching, Yeah, you can cast it however you like. It's not perfect coaching, but it's good coaching.
Yeah, no, and I have a lot of people that disagree. I have said before, I don't know where you fall on this, Marcus, at all, but I don't know where you place the importance of the coach on winning and losing in the NBA. Like, to me, when people say they lost the game the other night because Brown got out-coached, I would look at it and say, well, the Celtics shot 44% from three and the Sixers shot 30%. There's a big discrepancy there. Is Stevens a better coach than Brown? Yeah, probably. But I don't know that to me, coaches don't win and lose very many games in the NBA. The players and the talent win in this league. And to me, Brown does a great job of managing a lot of big egos and personalities on this team.
And it goes to the coach to make sure that the right players are put in the right positions to succeed. I mean, but if you're going to draft Ben Simmons and you're going to allow him, I don't know if it's Brown or Brian Colangelo or whoever, if you're going to allow him to take the court without a functional jump shot, then the Celtics are going to beat you. That's the reason they lost the series more than anything else, is because they altered their defense to force Ben Simmons into shooting jump shots and avoiding free throws. That was good coaching on Brad Stevens' part, and I'm not sure how you coach around that if you're Brett Brown. It is what it is. I'm more concerned that this season Ben Simmons still can't shoot free throws and jump shots. Maybe that's the damning review on Brett Brown. Maybe that's the big issue. However, Joel Embiid took a huge step forward. Joel Embiid's a better player this season. I think Ben Simmons is probably a better player overall this season. Certainly Dario Saric was a better player going into, at the beginning of the season than he was last. I mean, he's developed players, and he seems to be able to deal with all players. Tobias Harris, as maybe difficult or imperfect as Jimmy Butler's integration has been, Tobias Harris's integration has been seamless. Tobias Harris is playing his best basketball right now with a brand new team in a totally different scheme on a different coast.
You can make the argument, Marcus, that he is finally the most complete player this team has had in a long time.
Yeah, he really is, and Brett Brown gets very little credit for that. I will say that Jimmy Butler's defensive capabilities, even if his overall game isn't blowing you away right now, he's probably the best overall player they've had since Iguodala. But certainly, but my point is, Tobias Harris comes here and looks spectacular, and that's coincidental. But Brett Brown gets blamed for everything else. He doesn't get any credit for integrating Tobias Harris. He gets blamed for doing everything else.
Yeah. I know you got to run, Marcus. We appreciate a couple of minutes. We always say all the time, you beat Golden State on the road, you win at Denver, you sweep the Nuggets, you beat Houston. We don't remember the good times. We always highlight the bad times, right? Isn't that the way it works in Philadelphia?
Well, it's a choice. It's a choice we all make.
All right, pal. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.